You know, there is something rather curious about this whole business of what we call spiritual awakening. People come and ask, what is it that awakened people see? What do they know that I do not? And the very way the question is asked already shows the problem. We imagine that awake people have access to some secret realm, some hidden dimension that ordinary people cannot touch. But that is not it at all. The spiritually awake person does not see something extra that is not there. They see what is already here, right in front of everyone, but without the usual filters, commentary, and constant noise of the ego. Let me put it like this. Imagine you are looking at a tree. Most of us do not really look at the tree itself. We look at the word tree, at the idea of treeness. We think, yes, that is a tree. I know what trees are. Useful for lumber, nice for shade, good for oxygen. And in that moment, we have missed the actual tree. We have confused the menu with the meal, the map with the territory. The awake person looks at the same tree and sees it directly, without the verbal fog. They see the suchness of it, the simple isness of it, the delicate dance of light and shadow, the texture of bark, the movement of leaves in the air. Suddenly, that ordinary tree is the most marvelous thing in the universe. It is not that they are seeing something magical on top. They are seeing what is really there when you remove what is extra, what the conceptual mind has added. Here is where it becomes very interesting. Most people move through life in a kind of trance. They are hypnotized by words, by concepts, by their own thinking. They mistake their thoughts about reality for reality itself. It is like someone who has spent their entire life looking at photographs of the ocean. They study the pictures, classify them, analyze the colors, and feel that they understand the sea. Then one day they go to the shore, step into the water, and a wave knocks them off their feet. In that moment they say, "This is nothing like the photographs." That is what awakening is like. The difference between a photograph and the living ocean. The curious thing is that everyone has tasted this now and then. Moments when the world suddenly becomes vivid and immediate. Moments of great beauty, great danger, great love. In those instants, thinking stops for a moment, and there is just this clear presence of reality. Children live in that state naturally. Watch a child discovering a puddle or a butterfly or their own hands. They are completely absorbed, completely here. They have not yet learned to replace experience with concepts. Then we educate them. We teach them to live in their heads, to live in the past and in the future, to live everywhere except in this actual moment. Slowly, that clear seeing fades, and they join the rest of us in the collective trance. The spiritually awake person has somehow broken this trance, perhaps through meditation, perhaps through a deep crisis, perhaps through intense questioning. The method is less important than the discovery. What they have realized is that the way they were trained to experience reality is only one way, and not a very accurate one. They have discovered that their thoughts about things are not the things themselves. And then something even more disturbing appears. The awake person sees that there is no separate self in the way we usually imagine it. This does not mean they do not exist, or that you do not exist. It means that the feeling of being a little ego locked inside a bag of skin, separate from everything else, is a mental construction. A very convincing one, but still a construction. We are taught to identify with the little voice in the head, that inner commentator that is always speaking. I like this, I dislike that, I am afraid of this, I hope for that. We grow up believing that this voice is who we are. The awake person sees that the voice is something that appears in awareness, but is not what they truly are. You can notice your thoughts. You can watch them arise and pass. If you can observe your thoughts, you cannot be identical with them. That which observes is not the thing observed. The awake person discovers that they are the awareness in which everything appears. Thoughts, feelings, sensations the whole universe of experience. They are not a tiny thing inside the universe. They are the field of consciousness in which the universe appears. This is not some grand fantasy of being powerful. It is actually the melting of the ego, a realization that what you truly are is much more fundamental than this little character you have been playing, with a name, a story, and a set of ambitions. The awake person sees through what I sometimes call the skin-encapsulated ego. They notice that the line between inside and outside is not as solid as it seems. You breathe in and the air becomes you. You breathe out and you become the air. You eat an apple and the apple becomes your body. Where exactly do you end and the rest of the world begin? The line is arbitrary. We draw it for practical use, but nature does not obey that drawn line. When you really see this, not as philosophy, but in your bones, everything shifts. You realize you are not a stranger dropped into a foreign universe. You are not an accidental spark of awareness floating in a dead, mechanical world. You are an expression of the whole, in the same way that a wave is an expression of the ocean. From here, another perception opens. The awake person sees the unity of all things, not just as a soft mystical idea, but as a literal fact of interdependence. You cannot have up without down. You cannot have inside without outside. You cannot have self without other. You cannot have life without death. These do not exist independently and then connect. They are two sides of one coin, aspects of a single process. Most people see the world as a collection of separate objects that sometimes interact. They see themselves as one object among many, and everything else as out there. The awake person sees that this is like saying the crest of a wave is separate from the trough. Both are features of one movement. In the same way, all the apparently separate pieces of the universe are part of one vast happening. This recognition changes how you live. If you are not truly separate from others, then causing harm to them is like harming your own body. Ethics no longer come from rules imposed from outside. They arise naturally from seeing what you are. Another thing that becomes clear to the awake person is the deep intelligence of nature, the intelligence of the universe itself. We are taught that consciousness is a rare accident that appeared in human brains. Everything else, we are told, is dead matter, mechanical and unconscious. But if you think carefully, this is a very peculiar belief. How could conscious beings arise out of an entirely unconscious universe? How could understanding sprout from total mindlessness? It is like expecting sweet fruit from a plastic tree. The awake person senses that consciousness must be woven into the fabric of reality itself. The universe must be capable of awareness in its very nature, or awareness could never appear within it. Look at your own body for a moment. You are not consciously beating your heart. You are not managing your digestion. You are not directing your immune system, your cell repair, the growth of your hair. All of that is happening with astonishing skill and precision without any effort from your conscious mind. The same intelligence that turns seeds into forests and caterpillars into butterflies is moving in you right now. You are not doing it. It is doing you. The awake person sees that the ego is not really in charge. Thoughts arise on their own. Actions happen. The sense of being a separate controller is, again, just another thought within awareness. In truth, you are being lived by the universe, just as a wave is being waved by the sea. At first, this can be frightening. People worry, if I am not in control, then what am I? Am I just a puppet? Do I have no choice at all? But that is still based on the old split between me and the universe. What the awake person realizes is that the one who seems to control and the life that seems to be controlled are not two separate things. The universe is not forcing you around. You are what the universe is doing here and now. When this is seen, there is a great release. all that tension about whether you are living correctly, making the right decisions, doing life well enough, begins to soften. You realize that you cannot fall out of reality. You cannot be anywhere except here. This does not make you careless or passive. It makes you more natural, more spontaneous, more aligned with what is actually happening. There is another illusion that the awake person sees through very deeply, and that is the illusion of time. We tend to imagine time as a line stretching from past to future, and we see ourselves as moving along this line. But if you look closely, you never actually leave the present moment. The past is a memory appearing now. The future is an image or expectation appearing now. Everything you have ever experienced has happened in this ongoing now. The awake person lives fully in the present because they see that it is the only place life ever really happens. Most people are almost never in the place where their body is. They are busy thinking about what happened yesterday or worrying about what might happen later. Meanwhile, the miracle of this moment goes unnoticed. The feeling of this breath, the colors in the room, the subtle pressure of gravity, the simple fact of being aware at all. Awakening is, in a sense, the return to this immediacy, the realization that this moment is not a stepping stone to something more important. This moment is the whole show. This does not mean you stop planning or stop learning from experience. It means you stop confusing plans and memories with reality itself. Reality is always now. When you rest more deeply in the present, something else happens. The mind begins to quiet down. The constant stream of commentary and judgment softens. There is still thought, but it is no longer the master. It becomes background instead of foreground. And in that quiet, you begin to notice awareness itself. You notice the open, spacious presence in which every thought, every sensation, every sound is appearing. And you realize that this awareness is what you truly are. It has been here the entire time, while your attention was busy chasing one thought after another. This awareness is completely simple and completely mysterious. It is not an object. You cannot see it the way you see a tree or a hand. It is more like the light by which you see everything else. Without it, there would be no experience of anything at all. The spiritually awake person rests more and more as this awareness. They still feel emotions, still have thoughts, still live an ordinary human life, but their sense of identity is no longer confined to the small character in the story. From this view, problems do not suddenly vanish, but their grip loosens. Pain is still felt, but there is less resistance, less extra suffering layered on top. Joy is still tasted, but there is less fear of losing it. Life begins to feel more like a dance, a play, a cosmic game, not because nothing matters, but because you no longer believe that your entire existence depends on the success of the character you are playing. You can engage fully, love deeply, work sincerely, and yet not be trapped by any of it. This is what the spiritually awake person sees. They see reality without so much conceptual fog. They see the unity of all things. They sense consciousness as fundamental, not accidental. They see that the separate self is a useful fiction. They see that all there ever is now. They realize that what they are is the awareness in which the whole show appears. And here is the beautiful and frustrating part. I can describe all of this in as many ways as language allows, and it will still only be more words on a menu. It does not feed you until you taste it directly. The real invitation is very simple. Right now, instead of following the next thought, just notice what is actually here. Look at something in front of you without naming it. Listen to the sounds in the room without labeling them. Feel the sensations in your body without telling a story about them. In that bare contact with what is, you may glimpse what the awake already know, that you are not a small, separate observer of reality. You are reality itself, looking at itself through these particular eyes.